When you go to pick something up off the floor, should you actually bend your knees and keep your spine straight? Because this is what doctors tell us to do all the time. But does this advice actually make sense? We're going to talk about it in this video to help you protect your spine and your knees. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. So let's talk about this very common advice about keeping your spine straight and going to pick things up from the floor. Many people often have this idea that keeping your spine straight means you also need to keep it vertical like this, which is not true. When you're going to pick something up like this, with your spine perfectly vertical, it's going to be pretty awkward and pretty stressful for most people because you probably lack the strength around your knees and the flexibility in your ankles to do it. So you're going to end up doing this, and now your knees are probably going to start to feel real bad if they don't immediately crack, pop, snap, and feel like something is going to give way. So know that when you're going to pick something up, you are in fact allowed to let your spine change its position in space, so you can fold at the hips to get your body and your hands closer to the object you're trying to pick up. Also know that your knees, when they bend, can bend at whatever angle makes it feel doable for you to get down to your object. The whole point of saying don't bend your spine but bend your knees instead is to make sure that you don't do this and then put your spine in a position where it's very likely that you're going to strain some muscles along your spine or potentially even pop a disc. The reason doctors give this advice is because most people, you included, have really crappy posterior hip flexibility, meaning your glutes and your hamstrings are not good at getting long and being strong when they're long. What does that mean? Well, you sit in a chair all day and that looks something like this, and that means your hamstrings are usually pretty poor at lengthening, meaning allowing the knee to go straight. So when you try to hinge to try to pick something up, you can't. You find that you do this with your spine to make up for poor range of motion and poor function in your hamstrings and also your glutes. Because when you're sitting in your chair, your glutes are being smashed all day. Those glutes basically die. They're being deprived of blood. They're not being asked to work, so they just wither away. And then you try to say, hey, glutes, I want you to lengthen and lengthen and lengthen, and then give me some power to pick this thing up. And your glutes say, sorry, we are checked out because normally you're just crushing us for 14 hours a day. So doctors will tell you, bend your knees to do that, but then you probably also have very weak knee muscles. So what are you supposed to do? Because as you bend your knees, you get closer and closer, and then you actually have to pick that thing up. You might still end up hurting your back or feeling like you popped or blew your knee out because your knees aren't really prepared for that level of work either, because you sit in a chair for 14 hours a day, so you have no quadriceps muscles. So what you may have noticed is something that another viewer actually commented on a previous video, where they said, hey, when you look around to like less developed countries, people are able to just like hinge at their hips, knees stay straight, they can be planting stuff, pulling weeds, doing whatever, farming all day long with no issue. How come they're able to pick stuff up with their knees straight without bending their knees at all? Well, the answer is, like I mentioned earlier, the posterior hip muscles know how to get long. They know how to be strong enough in those lengthened positions so that they can pick stuff up. Now, some Westerners out there who have lived their whole lives in chairs and who maybe spend a lot of time in the gym might say, well, that is a freakish level of flexibility to be able to bend down and touch one's toes or tie one's shoes by the power of their own fingers. That is unbelievable. That's like being a ballet dancer. And let me just point out that this is another example of the physically feeble fallacy. It's very common for humans to look for justifications and rationalizations for things that are kind of hard emotionally to take responsibility for. So you think about how muscles work in the human body, you have to realize that they only get good at what they are trained to get good at. And so if you live a life and you train your body in a way that just stiffens everything, or that just kind of gets you into the same kinds of motions in the same configurations all the time, you're going to find that you're not able to do anything outside of those well-worn patterns. The fact is, humans can adapt their bodies to a lot of things. That's why when you go to the gym and you train, you can get stronger, you can get better at different motions. That's why you can see adults who are in their 40s and 50s learn how to do handstands. You can see people develop flexibility to do the splits as adults, even if they couldn't do it as children, because the muscles have to learn how to do things properly. And once you start teaching them, they learn. That's the beautiful part about how this body works. Now, for you, if you have trouble picking things up and it's a threat to your spine, you're worried you're going to hurt your back, you're going to hurt your knees, then it is a great idea to think about how you can make this whole pattern work for you and make your body do this pattern that people in less developed countries can do really easily. And that's this, right? It's called a hip hinge. It's making sure that you can move your pelvis in this way, right? It's like your belly button is being drawn down this way. You want to be able to touch your toes, okay? So this is about training the flexibility here, training the strength of these muscles to be long and strong, training the muscles in front to be able to pull you into this position, then be able to use these muscles to lift back up. You may find it difficult to develop that flexibility, but the process of building it will help you to at least do it with your knees bent, right? So you don't have to do this with your knees perfectly straight. You can use that as a test and just go like, oh my gosh, I can't get there. But then you can say, well, what happens if I bend my knees? Can I still keep my spine straight? And think about hinging here. Think about this axis of rotation here. Can I crank down into this and then lift up? When you're doing this, please start with light weights. Please start with objects that are easily reachable, and then gradually pick something that's a little bit lower. So for example, I have this very tall kettlebell to start with. Maybe you can do this with a little bit of knee bend. You can get to it. You can lift it up. Whew. Hallelujah, no problem. Over time, as you get more competent and confident, you can try to reach a little bit lower. Oh, I got it. Yep. Oh, shoo. So you want to practice these motions. You want to be able to control these motions, right? You could do things like pausing right here, just hanging out and making sure your butt and your hamstrings, your back muscles all know how to handle this, and then come back out of it. Figure out a pattern that works for you, and then if you want to get more flexible, you can also think about using the weight to help you come down, teach your hamstrings to lengthen, teach them to be strong as they lengthen, so you're training eccentric contractions. Because if your muscles stop working back there, you would just flop over, but they're obviously still working, they're lengthening, they're still supporting this weight, right? This is the stuff you gotta do gradually and safely so that when you go to pick something up, you have an extra margin for error, right? If the most that you can hinge is like here, then you're not going to be able to pick up anything, right? It's just going to be bad. But if you can hinge to here comfortably, safely, competently, and confidently, then maybe you can get the rest of the way by bending your knees. Or maybe you could get the rest of the way by widening your stance and then bending your knees, and then you can get to the object, right? But ideally, over time, you want to be able to go straight kneed and get pretty darn close. Like if you can get 90 degrees here, that would be great. Between your thighs and your torso, if you can get a 90-degree angle, that'd be phenomenal, fantastic. You're not gonna be a ballet dancer. You don't have to be a ballet dancer. You can be a strong man and still be able to touch your toes. That is a totally legitimate goal. It would not make you a genetic freak. It would just mean you're a well-rounded athlete, a well-rounded human who can do things like touch his toes or tie his shoes without feeling super stiff everywhere. The added benefit to all this is you would greatly reduce your chance of hurting your back. You would greatly reduce hip discomfort that you probably have, because again, you're sitting for 14 hours a day and all these muscles are super weak, atrophied, and stiff. So training them to be better will really help that too. For ideas on that, please check the description box. I have videos about helping you touch your toes that go into more detail about different exercises you can do. And also I want to talk a little bit about nuance here. Hey, I want to take a quick second to say a big thank you to Jinx and Christine for the $20 super thanks donations on YouTube, and also to Moore and Britta and Susan for the donations they made on my website to support this channel. If you want to support me too, just go to uprighthealth.com/donate. You'll see a couple easy options, or you can just use the thanks button or the join button on YouTube to support future videos like this. It means I don't have to make ads for clothing or supplements, whatever random stuff people want to sell you. So if you want to support me, please do so. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, subscribe and go to my website, uprighthealth.com/BRB, to get a free program to help you rebuild your body at home. All right, let's get back to the video. So when we talk about keeping your spine straight to pick things up, it's really good general advice because it'll keep most people very safe as long as you understand that you can hinge from the hips and not keep your spine straight. But if you adequately prepare your spinal muscles, you can let your spine bend. If you watch children, like I've been watching my son and his friends, when they pick stuff up, they don't always do it with perfect weightlifting form. They don't always go with a nice straight spine to pick something up. Many times they'll just go and like around their back and just grab the thing and lift it up, and their spines don't snap. They don't die right away. They don't become paraplegics. They don't pop discs in their back because they're actually doing this kind of thing pretty often, and they're not doing it under super heavy load. Meaning the muscles along the spine are strong enough to handle a certain amount of load without any injury. It can stabilize things fine, but there will be a certain load that will result in injury. But a kid just going to pick up like a heavy rock, it's fine. It's within their range of capability, right? But if you're an adult and you're like, I have this giant ego and I'm a man or whatever, or I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, I can do whatever I want and I don't care, I'm just gonna like, and you hurt something, it's because, well, you made poor choices, right? Because you aren't normally picking stuff up in this non-ideal way. And then when you're faced with warning signals from your body, like, oh, like it's not moving, not sure we can do this. When you ignore those signals, you are setting yourself up for something to go bling, bling, ouch. So instead of letting your ego injure you, you can start to train your body to go into non-ideal positions as well. And I won't go super into detail on this, but basically there are videos of people doing stuff like Jefferson curls, where you're training your body to handle weight in that so-called non-ideal positioning, right? Like you're allowing your spine to round, and you're doing it with some load, but you're doing it with a load that still feels safe. You might feel a little stretch, but it doesn't feel dangerous, right? And so you just work on training your body to go into some of this stuff safely without feeling like you're overwhelming your body. And that is an okay thing to do if you're going to do it in a smart way. If you do this like an idiot and you do it with heavy weights the first time, or you do it really fast, you rush it, you try to load it really heavy, like you're just gonna hurt yourself. Don't do that. But the plus side to disregarding the straight spine advice is that you end up with more movement options. So in life, you're not always able to do things exactly the way you want to do them. You can't always do them perfectly, but if you have trained to be in a non-perfect position, it means you'll be more resilient to the challenges of being in those non-perfect or imperfect positions when real life forces you to do it, right? Like if you play some sport and you sometimes have to react in a way that twists your spine but puts you into a non-ideal position, you better hope that your body is prepared for it. And the only way to make sure that your body is prepared for it is to prepare for it, right? So to wrap up, yes, your spine should be straight. It doesn't have to be vertical. Your knees should bend, but don't rely on your knees entirely because your knees will pop and snap, especially if you're weak. So your body is allowed to hinge. That's going to be the best way to do it. Puts the weight into the exercise weight. It puts the load, the challenge into your butt and your hamstrings. And those are really big muscles. Those help you stand up nice and safe. Keeps your spine feeling decent. Keep loading things up over time. Make sure that you develop the flexibility in the butt and hamstrings. Load that as well so those muscles get stronger in all those lengthened positions. And your spine will feel so much safer in the long run. If you found any of this helpful, drop me a comment, hit the like button. Also, I want to invite you to go to my website at uprighthealth.com/BRB and sign up for the Body Rebuilding Basics. Totally free program to help you understand all the things you need to understand to rebuild your body at home. If you've been aching and breaking for decades, this course will help you understand the reasons why, and it'll help you understand all the pitfalls involved with rebuilding your body, including the physically feeble fallacy, which I mentioned earlier in this video. If you don't know what it is, I encourage you to go check out the course, Body Rebuilding Basics, uprighthealth.com/BRB. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, and as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks. Life shouldn't.